But the Cardinals will be sitting at home waiting for their opponents in the World Series. The Red Sox and Tigers will get it on in Game 6 at Fenway. And this is the Red Sox series to lose. They have the home field advantage right now. They have to win just one game. But if there's a team that's up to pressure, it's any team led by Jim Leyland and the Tigers.
This is true, but you have to wonder how much of a different series this would be had Detroit's bullpen not basically imploded in the 8th inning of Game 2. When they're up 5-0 after Scherzer has the great performance, they turn it over the bullpen, and Detroit's had a pretty good bullpen, but they're prone to lapses, and that was one at the worst possible time, and it allowed Boston not only to even the series, but basically to seize the momentum in the series. Only a strong hitting performance in Game 4 gets Detroit, and it's. Still, the Tigers still have a legitimate chance as opposed to, the Dodgers would have had to come back from 3-1 on the Cardinals. Not impossible. We saw the Giants do it to them last year, but it's always long odds. The Tigers are not in that deep a hole, but still, going back to Boston in front of that rabid crowd, it's going to be tough winning 2 in a row.
No, it's amazing what type of year that Prince Fielder has had, and he's a guy that if this Tiger team loses the series, it will be a lot of pressure will be put on him to produce when the time comes around again. But we're going back to the pitching and what you were talking about. Max Scherzer, he has not pitched a complete game all year. It's amazing. For a guy that has done so much this season, he has not pitched a complete game this year. This would be the time to do it. If you're going to step up, step up right where it counts.
And it's true when you think about even in this day and age where you have specialized bullpen, and a lot of teams are only asking their starter to go 6 innings because then you go at the 7th inning guy, the 8th inning guy, and the closer. Still, most guys who you put in that ace category, you're expecting them to at least get maybe 4 or 5 complete games a year. And so you, of course, going into the season, he wasn't necessarily the definitive.
Right,
most people
Verlander
would have put Justin Verlander in that category, exactly. But still, when you have a guy that's had his type of year, it is surprising that he's not had a complete game at all. And this would be an ideal situation if he can pull it off to have a lights-out performance.
Well, still in this whole situation, I think the best manager right now in the postseason is John Farrell. As much as Jimmy Leyland has been there before, he's starting to lose a little step. He really is, and I would never thought I would say that with Jim Leyland because he's always a guy that withstands the test of time. But he's taking a step back here in this postseason.
Right. And also, you have to give credit to Farrell and also Ben Cherington in terms of basically rebuilding what was, basically in a little over a year when you go back to the trade they made with the Dodgers last August, basically rebuilding what was a horrible chemistry in terms of the chemistry and just the whole makeup of that.
Well, it was all Bobby Valentine. Valentine really steered them in the wrong direction. And when you look back at that was let's hire the name, and not necessarily see how he's going to work within our organization with our personnel, and it backfired on them. And I say this a lot, much to the consternation of my neighbors up in New England these days, that the Red Sox have basically become another version of and you'll get and the hardcore Boston fans will admit it. It's the ones who are sort of only have started following the Red Sox in the last 5-6 years because they're not the Yankees. It's no, we're nothing like that. But people who have been the long-term Boston fans, I think Bill Silverman's even did a column on that. Yes, we became the Yankees, look, and that's how you end up with a season like 2012. And so for Cherington and Farrell to basically take what was a mess, it's and turn it go from 69 wins to 97 over the span, making, not necessarily going out and getting the flashiest free agent pickups or trades, but getting guys, who fit roles in what they were trying to do. Yeah. They did a tremendous job. Exactly. This is homecoming weekend. Peter Bellotti with John Zoni at the half. Pioneers just walloping the pace setters on homecoming Saturday. A lot going on homecoming weekend, including the annual announcement of the WCWP Hall of Fame class this year coming up for 2014. It's the third class going into the Hall of Fame, and that'll take place today with Bernie Bernard about 5 o'clock. So listen on to 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Bernie will be here, and we will reveal the Hall of Fame class. 4 new members going in this year. That'll make 12
for the entire Hall of Fame class thus far. As I said, you're listening to John Zoni, Pete Bellotti at the half, and we're going to get back to Jeff, Neal, and Joel in about 2 minutes or so. Real quickly, let's go to the football. The NFL, the Jets, they're playing with house money coming up against the Patriots. I mean, no one thought they would be where they are right now in a somewhat okay spot. But this could be the test. This could be the time where you really see what they are.
Well, this is another situation where sort of like, it's not quite a complete chemistry makeover like it was with the Red Sox, but compared to the circus that was last year, Tebow, Sanchez, this and that, Tebow, the Jets punt on the Tebow experiment, Sanchez gets hurt, so Geno Smith has been, solid for the most part. He's had some rookie mistakes, but this is going to be a tough one for them going into New England, especially with Gronkowski expected back. New England finally looks like they're starting to hit their Brady's.
Of course, against the Jets, always against the Jets. And as for the Giants, this could be the game. If the Giants can't beat a team, they always beat the Vikings. This could be the game where you really see the writing on the wall for Tom Coughlin. Unfortunately, because Tom Coughlin giving them 2 Super Bowls, this may be the time where they decide, let's look elsewhere at the end of the year.
2 Super Bowls are great, but if an 0-7 start, and if you can't beat a Viking team that's on their 3rd starting quarterback, it might be time to pull the plug.
That's right. Hey, John, thanks a lot. This was fun doing the old sports talk again, and we will get back to Jeff, Neal, and Joel for the second half action. You're listening to Pioneers Football on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Weeknights at 9 on WCWP.
Mondays, it's knocking on Dylan's door with George Walsh taking you on a journey.
Thank you very much.
Bob Dale.
Thanks, Chris.
Check out the every addiction lockdown.
Wednesday is the Big Meal Cafe.
Are we on video?
Yes.
Watch me play with Mike with the camera. No, only kidding. Are you rolling?
Yeah, are you about to go on?
Oh, no, just saying.
All right.
I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to jump. .1968 songs.
Yeah.
.1 FM, WCWP.org. Some music from 1968 that was popular here at WCWP at the time. We heard from Neon Philharmonic and Morning Girl of Brooklyn Bridge, featuring the wonderful, gorgeous voice of Johnny Maestro, who we lost a year or two ago. That's Welcome Me Love. The Grassroots, Midnight Confessions, Orpheus, who actually played here at Post in 1969 and can't find the time to tell you, and Fire! The Crazy World of Arthur Brown on WCWP. I'm Bernie. It's homecoming weekend. We have all kinds of stuff going on here. Coming up at 5 o'clock, about 35 minutes from now, we are going to announce the next group of inductees into the WCWP Hall of Fame. We got a party. Yeah, really. We got a party going on outside. We're firing up the grill. And we have a lot of alumni from far and wide coming to join us here, and some current students too. So we are happy. It's one big party here on homecoming weekend in WCWP. There was a favorite singer and songwriter of mine, John Wetton, who was a member of King Crimson and Roxy Music UK, and he's currently with the band Asia. I got a chance to see him actually twice last week. So and my friend Ward, who's listening in Huntington, is a big fan of his too. So for Ward and Debbie, who are listening in Huntington, here's some John Wetton on WCWP.
Act natural.
We had gotten a little better, but it's very. We had Neil and I had a thing going. We had.
Thank you for, we had dollar bills. We were sure we were going to screw up and say CW Post a lot instead of LIU Post. So the deal was, anybody that says CW Post got to throw $1 into the pot, right? So we were going to collect $1. And it had a secondary bet. This is for guys my age. The Knicks used to have a guy named Michael Ray Richardson. Their character players over the years.
Should be sinking.
Should be sinking, Michael Ray. So the Post, the leading receiver is Michael Richardson. So I said, I'm sure I'm going to screw this up at some point and say Michael Ray Richardson. So he was part of the bet. If I say Michael Ray Richardson, that $1 goes in the pot. It didn't cost us $1. We were good. We were really good. But we were all ready to go. It was funny. We split it. I gave him $10 and I had $10. We were going to see who put more in the pot.
Yeah.
That dark hair.
88.1 FM, WCWP.org. Hi, I'm Bernie. It's homecoming weekend. We just heard Sparks and Jane Wiedlin from the Go-Go's and Cool Places, Van Morrison doing Wild Night, and Patti Smythe and Scandal, and The Warrior here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. Got one more to play for you. And then the big announcement. Ta-da! The new inductees into the WCWP Hall of Fame. So this is new. These guys have been around a long time. The Moody Blues. This is the new solo album from Justin Hayward, Spirits of the Western Sky. This is On the Road to Love on WCWP. .1 FM, WCWP.org. That is brand new from Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues. Yep, they're still making music after all these years. That's from his album called Spirits of the Western Sky. And On the Road to Love. I'm Bernie. We have a big announcement here on WCWP. Pete Bellotti is with me. He is the president of the WCWP Alumni Association. Pete, welcome.
Hi, Bernie.
Hey, glad to have you along here.
It's a great homecoming weekend.
It is.
The barbecue's firing.
We have a little spontaneous applause here. Thank you very much.
Spontaneous, very spontaneous.
Very spontaneous. We are going to make the announcement now of the inductees of the next class. The induction ceremony will be in April of 2014.
That's right.
So,
well, I'll leave it to you.
Okay.
You were inducted last year.
I was.
Along with Bill
Great
Moser.
honor.
And we have 8 Hall of Famers right now, and we're going to add 4 more coming up in 2014. And this is certainly a unique class. This is a class of a lot of people that really had an impact on our station and on the WCWP brand. And Bernie, since you were you were a Hall of Famer last year, I'm going to let you do the honors of announcing our class of the Hall of Fame.
All right. First, we have Rita Sands. Next one is Frank D'Elia. Bill Epperhart, who we lost in 2000 to pancreatic cancer. He is here. And the other one, who should be here with us on the phone, is Ted David. Ted, you there?
I am, Bernie. Good afternoon to you and to Pete and everybody else. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for being on the phone with us. And may I be the first to say congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It is indeed an honor. And we've only had how many inductions? I mean, there are only, 12 people?
8.
8. Okay, so it's nice to get in on the ground floor.
Well, thanks. Thank you. Now, tell us a little bit about what you did after WCWP and during. Now, I know the big deal was, while you were still a student here, I think you were working at WGBB? Was it GBB?
Actually, LIX, and then GBB, and then HLI, and then PIX, all while I was there.
That's pretty impressive as a student. Very good.
Well, this is a real funny story, but I do want to make some comments about my fellow inductees at some point, so you let me know when I can do that.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about yourself first.
Well, it's so hard for me to do that, as you know. The funny story about that, first of all, the bottom line is this. If not for the radio station, and in particular Bill Moser, who was, the chief engineer, and I was going to LIU Brooklyn. I knew I wanted to go into the broadcasting business, and LIU Brooklyn at the time had nothing. I used to listen to WCWP, at night under my pillows from Queens if I could get the signal. And I knew I absolutely wanted to go to Post because of the radio station. My dad and I drove up. We met Bill, said, that's it, we're doing it. And so the rest is history, as they say. But the interesting and fun thing is, first of all, the station was so professional because Bill was working at WTFM already as an engineer, and then subsequently went to ABC. And so, whenever the stations threw out equipment, Bill would scavenge and take it and put it in. And so we were known in those days as the college radio station that had the best equipment, and in some cases far better. And trust me, I worked at some of them, and so did you. Far better than some of the commercial stations that were on Long Island. I think the funniest part of all of this was our second director of broadcasting at Post was Jim McConaughey. And Jim, Mr. McConaughey, as we called him, had been a staff announcer at ABC, among other places, and used the name Jim McKay on the air. And I guess the funniest thing was I took Radio 1, radio production or whatever the class was called, Radio 1 at CW Post, and my professor was Mr. McConaughey, who was the director of broadcasting at the station. Lo and behold, one day I'm at PIX on a Saturday doing my noon to 6 shift, and who comes in to be my news guy? Mr. McConaughey, who I now am told to call Jim. So it was rather interesting, and I didn't even get an A out of him.
Oh, man, he was tough. Now, tell us about the experience that you had during the strike. That was a very unique opportunity for you. There was an announcer strike? I can't remember.
I was a page at ABC. As I said, I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting, and fortunately, I had failed 11th year math 3 times, and my father said, you must have this Regents exam, so you have to go to summer school. So in those days, some people may remember the Rhodes School in Manhattan. I ended up becoming a Rhodes Scholar, quote unquote, and went there. I used to get out at 11 o'clock. I had nothing to do. I stopped by 1336th Avenue, went in. I said, do you have any jobs for pages? They said, if you can fit into the uniform, you've got the job. I went over to 66th. I fit into the uniform. I got the job. Lo and behold, November 22nd, 1967, all of the engineers and announcers went out on strike. It was actually a NABET strike. The engineers went out on strike, and AFTRA honored it. And me being a little bit pushy, just called Rick Sklar's office. He was the program director at WABC. I said, do you need anybody to go on the air? He said, yes. Take a cab over here. And over I went. At the age of 18, he had me read copy, and I went on the air with an indeterminate length newscast during the Jets game, and then worked for a good 4 months thereafter. Between you and me, I didn't go to class at all. I was running the board for, the jocks came back. Everyone came back but the staff announcers and the board ops. So I was running the board and doing news for Ron Lundy, Dan Ingram, Cousin Brucey, Herb Oscar Anderson, Charlie Greer, Chuck Leonard. It was just an amazing experience. And so by the time I got to Post, I thought I knew everything there was to know about radio, and was pretty obnoxious.
I have a couple of friends here in the studio who you might remember. Bobby Guthenberg.
Of course.
And Barry Albano and John Mertz are all sitting here listening to you.
Oh, my. Hi, guys.
Doing good.
They were all here. And, thank you for telling. Now, you've gone on to do some pretty amazing things too. CNBC, News 12. Tell us about life the past 20 years or so.
Well, actually, so I went to PIX and then worked there for 6 years as afternoon. Well, I was freelance. Then I did afternoon drive for 2.5 years until 76. And then in 78, I got hired at ABC News and was an anchor on the ABC radio network, the FM network and Direction network for 8 years. And then left there and went to CNBC, where I lasted for 20 years as an on-camera anchor doing business news. And then I retired at the age of 60 and started working at 1010 Wins, and I worked there for about 15 months until I decided the format was just a little too repetitive for me. And so I've been doing News 12 Long Island, and I love it there. Great people. It's a lot of fun. I feel at home on Long Island, and I work just enough, and it's good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, let's talk about a couple of the other folks. First of all, Rita Sands. We were all in awe of Rita Sands because she broke a lot of ground for women in radio. She was one of the first women anchors on, I think it was CBS News Radio. So we all really looked to her. She really led the way for a lot of people, especially women in radio.
She did, and Rita and I are very friendly, and she can tell stories, and I will leave them to her for her to tell. But as a pioneer woman in the business, I mean, she had to put up with a lot of crap. And so she did pave the way for people like you. And I know you were a pioneer, so you put up with a lot of crap. But I think, and we know what I'm talking about. And Rita was at WCBS. She was at the CBS radio network as an anchor. She was at the ABC television network. Rita was the first I think she was the first board op at ABC Radio, the network. And there is a picture circulating on our website, on our Facebook page, of Rita sitting in 5T, the op studio up at 1926 Broadway, cutting tape. I mean, she really was in the vanguard, and on top of all that, is just so damn good on the air. And I can tell you that, I'm not telling tales out of school. We're all over 60. I'll just leave it at that. You're not, maybe. I don't know. But Rita, not long ago, went into Manhattan, went up to CBS, hadn't been on the air in years, sat down with Wayne Cabot, who's the preeminent afternoon drive anchor at WCBS, sat down with him and did a demo, and Wayne told me on the QT she hadn't missed a beat in all these years of not being on the air, was just, right there and on top of it. So she's just a wonderful person, a treasure in the business, and just, what can you say? You can't say too much about her.
Yeah, she is amazing. One of the other folks, in this age of the freelancer and the daily hires, for somebody to be at one network for 30 years is absolutely amazing. That's Frank D'Elia.
Yep. Well, I first met Frank in 1970. WCWP has a lot of history behind it, and some of it is somewhat uncomfortable, or was at the time. Somebody got in there, and Steve Post from WBAI, and radicalized the station. And it got to a point, and I'm not getting political one way or the other. I'm just simply stating that at some point the university's license was in jeopardy as a result of the radicalization of the station and the students. But this was going on everywhere because of the Vietnam War and so on. And it was determined that if the station didn't shut down and just go off the air for a while, the FCC would pull the license. And so that's what happened. And then Bill Moser then took over as director of broadcasting. He had been chief engineer. Bill said, I got to get some people in here to put this place back on the air. One of them is actually, it's interesting because 3 of the 4 people who are inductees are all the people who Bill called on. Well, one of them was Bill Epperhart, and we'll talk about him in a moment. And the other one was me, and of course, the other one was Frank D'Elia. And I think that what characterized Frank, even in those days, was a level of maturity and knowledge and skill. And he just got it done. You don't last as long as he did. And he was at WHN for years. I think he was at OR, wasn't he? I believe he was.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, at ABC, where he's now still production supervisor and senior chief cook and bottle washer and so on, having been through the station through music and through talk and now through all of this syndication. And I mean, he's had more business cards and email addresses and domains attached to his name because of all the ownership. But, he remains because he's good at what he does. And he was good at what he did at Post, and he's a loyal friend and a good guy, and, a professional in the truest sense of the word. I mean, there is a guy who knows what he's doing.
He's also been able to hire some of our students who graduated, which is great. Getting them in the back door at a place like ABC is wonderful.
Well, that was always something that Bill Moser was able to do, too, was always direct students so that it wasn't just a college experience, but it then became a career opportunity.
Let's talk about our last inductee, who you mentioned briefly, and that's Bill Epperhart.
Well, I mean, what can you say about Bill Epperhart? there are those people who unfortunately face medical challenges and pass away prematurely, and people feel that they have to laud them and praise them and talk about them in wonderful ways because, after all, Bill Epperhart, were he alive today, would still get all the accolades and all the kind words because he was just that kind of guy. I first met him. Moser said, "I got to have somebody I can trust," and Bill Epperhart had a first-class FCC license. So I got to have somebody I can trust to do a proof of performance, which is this it's like doing a 10,000-hour check on a jet engine, to run this whole station through, make sure that the transmitter is putting out the right amount of power, that it's on the right frequency, that all the equipment is modulating properly, yada yada yada. So Bill was the guy who came in. I'd never met him before. And so here's this tall, lanky, blonde guy with glasses and a very unique personality. He suffered no fools, put up with no crap, and tolerated no nonsense. But he did it with good humor, and that was part of his charm. And there wasn't a moment that you hung around him where you didn't learn something. If you kept your ears open and your mouth shut and your eyes open, you learned something, whether it was editing tape or how to do something better than you were doing it. I mean, Bill was a natural teacher.
He was, I agree.
He was a natural teacher. I don't think he had any education credits, but so what? That doesn't prove anything. But he was patient, and he had all these nifty ideas and cool things to show you, and all you had to do was be a sponge and be open to it and have some aptitude. And so many people did that. Not only did we put the station back on the air, Frank D'Elia and Bill Epperhart and myself and another fellow, Bill Coleman, but a number of us stayed friends, and we put the place back on the air, and then it ended up thriving. But Epperhart, on top of everything else, he was a ham operator, WB2DTY. He was, as I say, an educator, whether he realized it or not. He was a professional broadcaster. He was a loyal friend. He ended up being a very good father, just a super guy. And unfortunately, of all the cancers that anybody can get, the one that's got the worst, it's only got a 6% survival rate, is pancreatic cancer. And even there, Bill excelled in the sense that he managed to survive 13 months instead of the usual 4 or 5. And a number of us went and spent much time with him in the hospital, and Bill Moser and I went out to visit him and brought in Chinese food and hung out with him. And, he kind of just, he managed to try and rise above it. And if there can be an amusing recollection, I went to visit him in the hospital one night. I got off the air at CNBC and stopped at the hospital. And unfortunately, this was a Friday night, and it was the Friday before he passed away on Tuesday. And so Bill was in pain, and me not, being terribly afraid of things, he and I get into cahoots about riding his morphine levels up and down so that he would be awake and could talk, and then when the pain got bad enough, we'd crank his morphine back up, and then he would sleep for a while, and then he'd wake up again. And so this is what we were doing. We were playing morphine roulette at Bill's behest, and when he was awake and not in pain, he had a TV that swung around in front of him. He had worked at NBC as a construction engineer. They built the whole studio, I think, 3G or somebody there will remember, but one of those studios. He's a project manager. So we swung the TV around, and he put his glasses on, and nah. He was just hilarious. Everything on TV he had something to say about, and he was always right. It was just, this was no good, and the quality here sucked, and the picture here was awful, and the color was out, and it was truly an amusing and funny time, oddly enough, in the otherwise awful context of someone who was dying, for Bill to still have that in him. The keen eye, the sharp sense of humor, and the willingness to critique it all. So,
well, thank you so much for that recollection, and congratulations. I think Pete wants to jump in here for a second.
Ted, we're very happy to have you into the Hall of Fame, and I really just talking to you over the last few weeks. It's good to have you back in the fold here at WCWP, and congratulations to all the inductees. But Ted, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you soon, and we'll see you in April.
Thank you. And in fact, sooner than that, tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I look forward
That's
to
right.
jumping in there and
That's right.
playing
Have
some old,
fun. It's
old
been a while.
tunes.
It's been a while.
All
So
right.
welcome back. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
This is for all the new kids in town, the new inductees into the WCWP Hall of Fame.
Bye, Pete.
Tonight Show like 3 weeks later, and I called Mom.
Turn on TV, oh, now it's on the Tonight Show. Yes, the guy we just saw a couple weeks ago. That's a tough act to follow. That's a tough act to follow.
It's so sad what happened to him, but he was so freaking talented.
He was.
Yeah, ready? 4.
Welcome back to the original Old Timers. I'm your host, Mr. FM, and these are two alumni right here. Introduce yourselves.
Mike Chimeri.
I'm Jay Mirabile, class of 2003.
What about you?
Class of 04, 2004.
Ah, I see.
And by the way, I'm not sure how I feel about being an old-timer, quote-unquote.
Yeah, it's just been 10 years. This is like your 10-year anniversary here.
Yeah, can't believe it.
But that's how it is. Yeah, that's it. Once you graduate, you're an old-timer.
Okay.
So tell me something. What was life back in the day, like 10 years ago?
Wow.
Well, you were here longer than me.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. This was the place where we did everything. We hung out, bunch of friends, that we made over here over the years. We made this pretty much our dorm room, if you will. I mean, we really did. We did everything together. Breakfast, lunch, dinner went on over here. Plans for the weekend and Friday night, Thursday night, they were all made here. We all partook. Is that a word? I'm not even sure.
I don't know.
Who cares?
In the broadcast of the evening. At that time, we weren't on 24/7 on 88.1 FM. We only had limited time, and we planned out the news broadcast, the music, and all the programming here. So we pretty much lived here. We, loved this place, still do, and we ate, drank, and did whatever else with this place.
You were here more than me. I came in. I did my show. Unless I was on campus, I wasn't really involved with the station. But I was involved.
At the time, I was the music director here, so I was always kind of involved in getting records into rotation, talking with labels, all that good stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I miss it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I wanted to ask you something. Now, I'm really interested in technology, especially in today's technology. But how was life in the radio station? How was the technology there? How was the tech?
Well, the technology was nothing like it is now.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. In our studios at the time, when I first got here at least, we didn't have digital boards. They were all analog. We didn't have computers in the studio. We didn't quite have the 8-track or card players back then. We were kind of on CD and turntables, not these CDJs, but actual Technique turntables. And that was a lot of fun. We also had DAT players. That was probably the most...
Yeah, I recorded most of my early shows on DAT.
That was probably the most digital we had back then. These computer screens all over the studio that we now have, TVs in the station, digital boards, and wave card and all that, non-existent at the time. We did, though...
We had Audio Vault.
We had Audio Vault and AV Air. That was kind of our, I guess, pre-automation.
Pre-Adobe Audition?
Yeah, pre-Adobe Audition. Much harder to use than Audition, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating. I wanted to break the screen. It was not cool.
So how was basically what I wanted to tell you? How's the reception in the radio station? Did it go throughout Long Island, or was it back when the radio was only just a on-campus radio?
No, it went out, but it didn't go out too far. From where I live down in Wantagh, you can't get the signal unless you're online.
And I'll tell you something else, that at the time, when I first started here in 1999, the web radio, and it's called My WCWP now, was called Web Radio WCWP, and the technology that was streaming that audio that we were outputting was not as it is today. It just wasn't there. So we would be broadcasting, and we might be 2 minutes in on our broadcast, and then the stream drops, and at that time also we didn't quite have the control over the technology that we do today in our back end here at the station. A lot of that kind of went through the Department of IT or whatever they call it. I'm not quite sure. But in any event, we would sometimes, I had a Friday night show, so if my stream dropped, it would most likely not come back until Monday morning. So a lot of times, I just had a good time. I pretended I was on the air, I kind of talked to myself. I do that anyway in my car, so why not just do it in the studio, professional equipment,
I never had that problem where the stream went out.
Oh my God, yeah. I had it a lot. Maybe when you started coming, it got a little bit better.
I joined October. My first show was October 5th, 2001.
I don't even remember when mine was, but it was a long time
Probably
ago.
before that.
At the time, Dan Cox wasn't even our station manager.
Judy Kramer.
Judy Kramer was our station manager. And like we were just saying...
Was Joe Manfredi here at the time?
Joe Manfredi was here. He was our director of operations.
Yes.
Kind of the, I guess, what you would call front office guy. A lot of pranks on him that were pretty funny, including putting Post-its up in his entire office, about 1,000 Post-its, ceiling to floor to computer and everything.
Anything Batman related?
Batman related. Guy was obsessed. Okay.
Yeah. So am I.
So yeah, we're kind of getting off topic, but as I was saying, the technology back then just wasn't what it is today. Today, I mean, we have state-of-the-art studios. Studio One, which just got renovated and remodeled, is spectacular. And I definitely would say to anybody who's interested in getting into radio, anybody who's just a radio nut like I am, and I think anybody who's ever worked here is, definitely should come down here and check out the studios. They're quite beautiful. They're quite state-of-the-art. I've worked at radio stations, even on Long Island, okay? Commercial stations that don't have the technology, don't have the audio boards and equipment that we have here at WCWP.
I was at WGBB from July 04 to May 05, and the technology was way down.
It's quite great equipment. And by the way, the board that you're interviewing us right now, which is I think the Harrison Pulse board, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it is.
I was the first one to broadcast on that board.
Really?
When it was installed. So it was in the studio. It was kind of facing the window at the time. And I was the first guy with Brian Miller and Joe Manfredi, who we just mentioned, to jump on that board and broadcast our first transmissions with the Harrison Pulse. So that was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. Actually, it might have been the larger board, the larger impulse that we had in here. I don't quite remember, but it was a lot of fun. It's a cool board.
Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know what happened back in the day. I know what happened in 1960s, 1970s. Now I know what's happening in early 2000s.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
Wow. So how old were you when I started in '99? I'm not that good at
math.
Right.
I was like 8 back in the day.
8, yes.
Wow, man, 8 years old. I'll tell you something. One of the things that I always kind of think about, and I feel definitely old for saying this, but back in the day when I was hosting the show back in the studio down the hall over there, we had some, I guess Tiger Cubs they're called. They're like mini Boy Scouts or mini Cub Scouts come in. And I remember we did a recording session in the studio and we had them do some shouts over the air and everything. And I just think about it to this day that those kids are probably maybe in college now, and they were just like little tykes back then, so it's unbelievable to think. I guess you're right. I am an old timer.
Well, it happens. I mean,
I guess so.
Yes, age happens.
And by the way, I hate to interrupt.
No problem.
But does this guy Mike Chimeri not have the greatest voice for radio?
Oh, he has the greatest voice in radio.
I mean, he's incredible, and he's a great guy too. So he's humble, does great radio, and I'm very fortunate to
in
know
a
this
niche
guy.
format like contemporary jazz.
Yeah, he's the jazz guy. I'll tell you, the best guy I know playing jazz music, smooth jazz.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Non-vocals, right?
Yes, no vocals. Backgrounds, but no vocals.
I'm sorry, we're getting a little off topic, but I had to give my man a shout.
Oh, yeah. Now, what I want to ask you is, how was campus here back in the day? Like, was it good? Was it terrible?
I had a great time. I don't regret one day of my life coming to Post. This is where I'd say a good portion of my memories lie. And I do a show still, Sundays, 1 to 5 p.m. here. You know, it's all the classic dance, today's dance music, freestyle, all that good stuff, right? And every time I leave this campus, every time I pull into this campus, I think about the good times that I had here and the great memories that I have. In fact, last week, I was kind of walking around the campus. I went to some of the buildings and just wanted to take a look at them. It's been a long time. And I'll tell you, it brought some nostalgic feelings back for me. You know, it was a great time, great place. I was a commuter, but...
Me too.
Yeah, but as a commuter working at WCWP, you're pretty much a resident here because you're always here.
That's
a good thing.
So you're the one that dorms, right?
No, we're both commuters. Or were commuters.
Oh.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, me too. I never dormed here.
Yeah, where are you from?
I live here in Brookville.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. And you had a shorter commute than me, right? You're a North Shore guy.
I'm a North Shore guy. I'm originally from Manhasset. I live in Great Neck now.
I lived in Wantagh then. I still live in Wantagh.
Yeah. So, you know, the commutes for both of us weren't that bad. My commute was a little bit shorter. Every once in a while you hit the traffic. And, of course, me, you know, Dan Cox will tell you, I'm always running late, you know, so even though I live close, sometimes, you know, it
happens.
I was late, you know,
I was
late
never
on somebody an hour who lived an hour from here.
I was never late, but one time I was locked out of the studio for 8 minutes.
I remember
Public
that.
Safety.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah, you were here. That was sometime in early 02.
Yeah, so.
I know, right? Like dead air for 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I remember I made one rookie mistake. I was dead air for 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, not good. But
you didn't make a switch in the back. That's my guess.
No, I pressed the wrong button. Let me tell you.
Oh, okay.
That. And there was like a problem with the computer. Computer froze. I couldn't play any music.
That happened to me too.
Just making excuses. No problem with the computer. I'm only kidding, buddy.
It was like on my first show. Okay, the computer was frozen. The wave card was frozen at times. So I was yeah. Now that problem's done now. Now, was there any shows that you guys went to, and do you interview any of these celebrities that came in?
Oh, I've interviewed some really awesome celebrities, and I know Mike has too.
Yes, I have. In my second stint here at WCWP, I ran the gamut of their voice actors and jazz musicians. David Benoit, Jeff Lorber, Jay Rowe, Chieli Minucci, Ken Navarro, and voice actors like Billy West, Tara Strong, Debbie Derryberry, Carolyn Lawrence, I think, and I can't think of anybody else, but
again, this guy just
rattled them
the
off.
most amazing voice I've heard.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. You know, I'm not hitting on you, but you just have a great voice. All right, but in terms of me, I've interviewed some great artists too. I've again, classic dance is kind of my thing. It always has been. And I've interviewed artists like Gloria Gaynor, Sharon Brown, freestyle artist Sanday, Casey of the Sunshine Band, some newer artists like Lucas Prada and Reina. Yeah, we had good times, man, and we still continue to do that. Tony from TKA, you know, great guy, is a karate academy upstate, which is pretty cool, you know. Yeah, interviewing, or I have interviewed a lot of great people, and I continue to do that here on the DFK.
Oh, there were a couple other interviews that came to my head just now. Tom Hughey, the voice of John Arbuckle in the 80s and early 90s. The recently elected at the time district attorney here in Nassau, Kathleen Rice.
I remember when you did that. I was afraid. I thought she was going to lock me up for something, but she was here for Mike's interview.
Well, it was over the phone, and her voice was shot because she'd been doing interview after interview after interview. She just won first woman to DA, I think, in the history of Nassau.
So let me ask you something, Mike. Actually, I should give you some advice. You should really be a newscaster.
Well,
thank you for news. Trust me, you want people with a clear voice to say the news.
We got Jeff Kroll in here, everybody.
Again?
He bashed me already. He gave me the third degree. It was an interrogation.
You know, with these lights, I feel like I'm underneath a heat lamp.
I want to get your address because there's
Okay.
pictures to
All right.
scan in.
We'll do that after we're done.
Well, the thing is, I'm leaving, so
Oh.
I hate to interrupt your interview, but
All
I
right.
got 6 people.
How much more time do we have?
We only have time for one more question, actually.
All right.
Last question because we're running out of time because Jeff, Joel, and Bruce wasted so much of the time.
They didn't waste
Thanks
any
a lot.
time.
No, they
These
didn't.
guys are great guys. They are legends here at WCWP.
Oh, yeah.
And tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff's on, right?
Yes.
So definitely.
Original
check
old
this out.
timers.
What time? What time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
It's going to be a lot of fun to
Listen
take a
to-
listen to these guys.
Good. Your paycheck will be in the mail for the plug. Thank you.
That's great. Too bad this recording will play after his show. So that ain't going to be good.
So what's your last question so we could get out of here?
That's a good question. No, my last question is, do you have any tips for, let's say, for future broadcasters on internships or how to get a job for this place?
I will tell you this. This is my advice.
Mhm.
My advice is that if your passion is radio, just, make it your life. Consume yourself with it. We were talking about Joe Manfredi, who used to work here, and one of the things that he told me at the time when I first got into radio is that if you want to be good in radio, you got to listen to a lot of radio. You got to read up on radio. You got to be on the internet, researching, listening to air checks, all this stuff, because you get better by listening to people who have been doing it for a while, professionals, kind of idolizing a lot of the radio jocks that are out there. I know I certainly have. Make radio your life. There's I think always 2 schools of people. I think there are people who want to be in radio because they think that they're going to be big time celebrities. I was never that way. I don't think Mike was ever that way.
No.
I don't think most people at WCWP
I'd rather
were that
be
way.
a small-time celebrity.
Well, I'd rather not be any type of celebrity because I hate the
Well,
camera.
I'm a celebrity in Connecticut
This
with
camera that
Jay Rowe and his friends.
The camera that Chimeri set up over here, it's like making me sweat bullets, But but I will tell you this. That the school of people who have worked at WCWP are people who are really truly passionate about radio because of it as a medium, and the great power that it has and the great fun and great memories that come out of places like WCWP. And it's great to be a part of this. And again, if you're into radio, okay, and you're thinking about a place to go to school, come here. This place, you're not going to regret it. Dan Cox is an amazing, amazing guy, and he'll definitely show you the ropes. Bernie Bernard, incredible. We got some top-notch people here, and I'll tell you what, alumni like me, students who are coming here and who have been here, they are the nicest people, okay, you're ever going to meet, and they're going to show you the ropes, and they're going to make you feel welcome and feel good about yourself. That's the greatest thing about this place. You feel like this is your home, and I'll never forget that as long as I'm alive.
And neither will I.
This is Mr. FM. Time to end the show. You were listening to
your
name.
Oh,
Come on, what are you
Mike
drinking?
Chimeri.
And
look, I've been drinking, and I remember my name. It's Jay Mirabile.
all right, that's good. That's good. Okay, you were listening to Original Old Timers. Now back to the music on 88.1 FM and on WCWP.org.
All right.
That was awesome.
Yeah. A little too much to drink there.
I'm sorry if I made that the worst interview.
I feel like I barely said anything.
No, it was good.
Hey, if I made that the worst interview you've ever done in your life, I'm not really sorry.
I don't photograph. I'm a vampire.
Oh, there is.
Be lucky.
88.1 FM, WCWP.org. I'm Bernie. Time for me to head on out of here. It is great. Thanks to Dan Cox. Thanks to WCWP for allowing the alumni to take over the airwaves for the weekend. It's been wonderful, and it's nice after having to work formats for most of my career to be able to do whatever the heck I want. And I didn't even have to say Rocktober once. So I'm very, very happy about that. So Disco and Funk King Jay Mirabile is coming up next. Oh boy. Let's get you in the mood for some of this. Oh, it's Tom Jones. Uh-oh, sex bomb, watch out. Ah!